Welcome back. Today, in our journey through the Bible, we will learn about what happened to the Israelites on the borders of the Promised Land.
For the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
40 years of wandering. Our memory verse today comes from Hebrews 12, verses 6 and 7. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? The quails. Traveling on the journey to the Promised Land with the Israelites was a group of people known as the mixed multitude. These were the Egyptians that believed and applied the blood to their doorposts. While on the journey, the mixed multitude initiated complaints perpetuated by the Israelites. They had grown tired of eating manna every day. So they complained to Moses that they missed the cucumbers and the fish and the seasonings in Egypt. So Moses turned to God and asked him what is to be done with these people. God was displeased at their complaints and in gratitude for their freedom. So God told Moses that they would have meat to eat. They would have meat not just for one day or for 10 days or even 20 days. God said they would have meat for a whole month till they were sick of it. God sent a strong wind driving flocks of quails from the sea over the Israelite camp. Having flown that distance, the birds were tired and hovered low over the camp that the people could easily catch them. Because of greed, the people that took the birds took too many, and God was angry at their gluttony. While the flesh of the birds was still in their teeth, they died as a result of a plague God sent on them. 12 spies. The children of Israel had finally reached the border of the Promised Land. So Moses chose 12 representatives, one from each tribe, to see the state of the land. The length of time that the Hebrews were gone from the land, other people had settled there. So the men received instructions from Moses and went up to spy out the land. After 40 days, they returned with the fruits of the land. One bunch of grapes had to be carried between two men. Then they brought the report to Moses and Aaron and the people. The spies reported that the land was all that God had said, fruitful and flowing with milk and honey. However, 10 of the spies emphasized the fact that giants occupied the land, and strong men, and that the cities were well fortified with high walls. Then Caleb, one of the spies, silenced the 10 and said, "Let us go up and take the land, because we are well able." The people chose to believe the evil report and complained against Moses. Then they decided to choose leaders that would take them back to Egypt. This angered Moses, Aaron, Caleb, and Joshua. Caleb and Joshua told the people that the land is good, and the fact that God wanted them to have it, it would be theirs. But the people refused to listen to them and were prepared to stone them to death. Before this could happen, God's presence came down to the tabernacle, the sanctuary. God was very displeased with the children of Israel and was prepared to wipe them out. But Moses spoke in their defense. So God decided that since they did not believe that the land was theirs for the taking, they would never see it. God ordered that no one 20 years old and over, except Caleb and Joshua, would see the promised land. They were to wander through the desert 40 years, 1 year for every day that the spies spent in the promised land. The 10 spies that gave the bad report all died of a plague, but Caleb and Joshua were preserved alive. Mutiny. After receiving their sentence, the Hebrews became a nomadic people, walking through the desert, setting up camp in different areas with the sanctuary at the center of the camp. They followed the societal laws God had given them through Moses. They also practiced the ceremonial laws and kept the feast days. One day, 3 of the leaders became restless and decided that they didn't like Moses' and Aaron's leadership, suggesting that they could do better. Their names were Korah, a Levite, Dathan and Abiram, Reubenites. They assembled 250 princes, men high in Hebrew society, to join them in challenging Moses and Aaron. At this time, the whole congregation of Israel came out to see the events. Then Moses declared that if he and Aaron were not called by God to do the work which they had been doing, then Korah, Dathan, and Abiram and their families would die natural deaths. However, if God had called Moses and Aaron to the positions, then the earth would open up and swallow up Korah, Dathan, Abiram, their families, and everything they owned. As soon as Moses finished speaking, the earth opened up and swallowed up Korah, Dathan, Abiram, their families, and everything they owned. Then God sent fire from heaven that burnt up the 250 princes that followed Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. The next day, the Israelites came to Moses and Aaron and accused them of killing God's people. This angered the Lord, and he sent a plague among the people. Moses became very afraid and told Aaron to get his censer and put fire and incense in and pray for the people. When the plague ceased, 14,700 people died from the congregation. The blossoming rod. Following the challenges continually coming up regarding Moses and Aaron's leadership, God gave instructions to put an end to all of it. He told Moses to gather the people together and have the leaders of each tribe bring a rod representing each tribe. They labeled each rod with the name of the head of their tribe. Aaron's name was written on the rod representing the tribe of Levi. God said that the rod belonging to the person he chooses as priest would blossom. The leaders of all the tribes obeyed, and they placed the rods in the tabernacle of the congregation in front of the ark. The next day, Moses went into the tabernacle and brought out the rods, and of the 12 rods, Aaron's was the only one that blossomed and had almonds growing on it. This brought an end to all the questions about Moses and Aaron's authority. God then told Moses to keep Aaron's rod as a reminder against any further rebellion. Aaron's rod is stored in the Ark of the Covenant with the 10 Commandments. Speak ye unto the rock. The children of Israel continued on their journey through the desert, and came to the desert of Zin. There Miriam died and was buried. Again the people came to Moses and Aaron, complaining that there was no water. Moses and Aaron went to the tabernacle and prayed to God for water. God instructed Moses to take his rod and gather the people together. With Aaron, he was to speak to the rock in front of all the people, and water would come forth for the people and their animals. Moses did as God had commanded and gathered the people together. However, in a moment of anger, he hit the rock a second time instead of speaking to the rock as God had instructed him. The water gushed forth, and the congregation and their animals had enough to drink. After this happened, God spoke to Moses and Aaron, telling them that because they did not believe, striking the rock instead of speaking, they would not lead the people into the promised land. Brazen serpent. As they journeyed through the desert, they came to Kadesh, the land of the Edomites. So they made a request of the king of Edom, that they may pass through. They pledged not to use any of their resources, and if anything should be used, they would pay for it. But the king of Edom declined their request, and came out to them with an army to ensure that they did not pass through. So Moses led the people around Mount Hor, away from Kadesh. During this part of the journey, Aaron died, and Eleazar his son became the high priest. The people mourned 30 days for Aaron. The journey around the land of Edom was long and tedious. The people began to complain again, wishing they had died in Egypt, murmuring against God and Moses that there wasn't enough water or food. So God sent fiery serpents among the camp that bit the people, and many died. So the people came to Moses confessing their sin and asked him to intercede with God for them. Moses prayed to God, and God instructed him to make a brass serpent and put it on a pole. Whenever the people were bitten by the serpents, if they would look at the brass serpent, they would be healed and live. Moses obeyed, and the Israelites were delivered from this plague. Balaam. As Israel was wandering through the desert, they came upon various nations that would not allow them passage due to their size. Some of the nations came out to war against them. As long as Israel remained faithful to God, he gave them victory over these challengers. They had victory over King Arad of the Canaanites and King Sihon of the Amorites. For a time, they lived in the land of the Amorites, which neighbored the land of Moab. This made the Moabites very nervous. Their king, Balak, saw what was done to the Amorites and decided to take action. Balak sent messengers with gifts to a prophet of God called Balaam to curse the Israelites that they would not overtake Moab. Balaam told them he would have to consult God. That night, God spoke to him and asked him what the messengers wanted. Balaam responded, and God informed Balaam that he should not curse the Israelites because they are blessed. The next day, Balaam told the messengers that God would not give permission to curse the people. So they left and returned to Balak with the response. Balak again sent more messengers with more gifts. Balaam again told them it doesn't matter what the king offered him, God has forbidden him to curse Israel. However, he told them to stay again that night. God spoke to him again and told him to go with the messengers, but he was only to say what God instructed him to say. The next day, Balaam saddled his donkey and went with the messengers. This made God angry, and an angel of God with a drawn sword stood in front of the donkey. The donkey saw him and turned out of the path. Balaam was angry and hit the donkey and turned her back onto the path. They continued on the path, and the angel was still there, and the donkey saw him and turned into the wall, crushing Balaam's foot, and he hit the donkey again. The angel again stood further up in the path, where there was no place to turn. Again his donkey saw the angel, and this time she stopped and fell to the ground. Again Balaam hit the donkey. So the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, What have I done unto thee that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? Balaam answered the donkey and said, Because thou hast mocked me, I would there were a sword in my hand, for now would I kill thee. Then the donkey responded, Am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And Balaam answered, Nay. Then God opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel with drawn sword in the path. This made Balaam afraid, and he fell to the ground on his face. Then the angel asked him why he hit the donkey those 3 times, when she was only protecting him. Balaam confessed his sin and promised to turn back. However, the angel said to go ahead, but he could only say the words the angel instructed him to say. When Balaam arrived at the king's palace, Balak offered him all types of gifts for his service. However, Balaam could only pronounce blessings on the Israelites. 3 times he tried to curse Israel, but only blessings came out of his mouth. After pronouncing blessings on Israel and angering Balak, Balaam returned to his house. Now it's time for our activity. How long and why did the Israelites have to wander in the desert? Correct, 40 years. 1 year for each day the spies were in the promised land. And they had to wander because they did not believe God was able to give them the land. Okay, whose rod budded? That's right, Aaron's rod budded because God had chosen him to be high priest. Now, what did Moses make to save the people from the serpent? Yes, God had instructed him to make a brass serpent and hang it on a pole. That represented a defeated serpent. What did Balaam do when the donkey spoke to him? Correct. He argued with the donkey. That man was intent on getting to his destination. Okay, try to write or say the memory verse from memory.
Yes, Jesus loves
Next
me.
time, we'll read
Yes,
about when the
Jesus
Israelites
loves
entered
me.
the promised land.
Yes, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so.